Hi, welcome to Eye Openers. I'm your host, Brittany Drozd, and each week I bring you insightful conversations with entrepreneurs that will help you make more money, become a strong leader, and build a business culture that you're proud of. Grab your coffee and let's dive in. Hello, I am so happy to share this very special episode with you. You see, today is my birthday, and so instead of doing the regular, cut the cake, maybe a nice dinner, I wanted to take the time to really reflect on my last trip around the sun and share with you very intentionally what were some of the moments from my highlight reel, but also be incredibly candid about some of the hard stuff and places that I feel that were challenging and where I've grown. Because you see, in an entire year, there's definitely a journey that happens. There's joy, there's growth, there's struggle, but my gosh, is there a whole lot of learning. And that's the place where it feels like it's really important to share with you. And honestly, I wouldn't be here without you. Like, my clients are just, they bring so much into my life. This audience, like, it's one of my favorite things when I go to a coffee shop or get a random email and say, oh, wow, I really loved this episode or this interview you did. Or this tool that you shared really helped me. And so thank you so much for being part of this story in your own special way. Now, let's kick this off with some moments that made me want to throw my hands up in the air and just celebrate some big, big wins, as I love to say. Now, if you are a coaching client of mine, you know that I love to start off our calls by celebrating some wins, because especially for my high achievers and overperformers, we don't slow down enough. We don't slow down enough to celebrate the wins. And so that is exactly why we are starting here. So some wins that stand out to me. In the last year, I'll start with a personal win. I absolutely love to play tennis. I started playing as an adult. So, there was a steep learning curve. But my gosh, if you want to do something humbling, try a new sport in adulthood in your 30s. And I was playing on this team, and there were so many problems, like personality dynamic issues that were coming up. I found it really distracting, and in fact, didn't really want to be a part of it. And it was going to be a lot of work to try to find a new team, like join a new club. But I want tennis to be fun. And the second it didn't feel fun anymore, I knew that there was something wrong. Like, this is supposed to be the thing that doesn't have stress in my life, that challenges me physically, but should not be mentally taxing in that kind of way, in the drama kind of way. And so I went out, found a new club, and the women have been so welcoming and so kind to each other. And the dynamics are like night and day. And it was such a great reminder that when you're uncomfortable, and when your life or your intuition, your brain, your heart is telling you to make a change, and it feels like a lot of work, it feels a little scary, I do it, and it rewards you. The universe really rewards you and shows up when you make an effort, when you show that you're committed to making a change. A second win, I help out at Lucid Therapeutics, and help out is probably an understatement. I run operations, and Lucid Therapeutics is the medical practice where my husband is the lead clinician there, and we do ketamine therapy. We have peptides and other services that can really help people thrive. And it was clear to me that having just ketamine as a service offering was not going to be enough for the business, given the size of town that we were in. And we had actually gone full in with a office renovation and bigger space and whatnot, with the assumption that if you build it, they will come. Now, as a business coach, unfortunately, I feel like there's a lot of ego that goes into some of this stuff for me, because I say, well, my gosh, if I can't do it, what right do I have to coach others? I know that that's not the truth, but so it was time to introduce another service offering. Now, this came as a tremendous barrier, or just with a lot of hurdles, because we needed to accept insurance where we were previously a private pay office.
And if anyone knows anything about insurance, it's a lot of work. And so with something that we set out to do, I would say like mid-April, we got to service our first patient mid-August. And month after month, this service offering has grown to now becoming, I'd say, over 80% of our revenue. And it is so incredibly rewarding. And for the most part, these are individuals who would have never been able to afford our offering that was private pay or cash only. And it is because we were willing to do the work that we have actually made these services accessible for people who can really benefit from them. And we made that decision because we went back to our values. We went back to the very basics and the foundational components of who we are. And in this company, we believe that psychedelics can really change how people show up in their world, in their relationships, and how they see themselves. And if those things can become more positive and bring more light, then that really can change the community and the world for all of us. But in order to make that a possibility, we had to change accessibility. And so I'm incredibly proud of us as a team, as a company, for what we stand for, and that we've literally been able to put our money where our mouth is and create that accessibility for hundreds of patients now. But guess what? Life is not just the good stuff. Let's be real, right? Like, it wasn't all wins and fun and things to celebrate. There have been moments that literally knocked the wind out of me, and that is no small feat. So I'll start actually with the physical wind being knocked out of me. I love my health and fitness. If you know me well, you know that. And I had some really interesting symptoms, and believe it or not, it was kind of from over exercise is what we thought at first, but I know myself, I know my body pretty well. I'm like, it doesn't feel like that's the case. And I had gone through some really stressful times, which I'll talk about in a second, in business, and noticed that it was having an impact on my body. And that's what I was seeing in these health symptoms. And I don't know about you, but when things feel like I'm unnecessarily harming my body, for instance, experiencing that level of stress, I felt incredibly motivated to make a change. First, I felt incredibly sad that I was doing that to my body. But once I got that information, it to help me remember that this was like, I had internal locus of control, like I could make these changes. And so I definitely make sure that I have about 24 hours between workouts. There were some times before where I was doing a lot more like 6 a.m. classes, but sometimes previously I was at a 4 p.m. class, and just that doesn't work for my body anymore. I got to acknowledge, like, I am no longer 22 and I might need a little bit more rest. So for my friends who know me and think I never rest, I'm starting to consider it. So thanks so much for reminding me. Rest is important. And I remind myself like to look at the bigger picture. If I have to choose between sleep and exercise, I choose sleep. It's ultimately better for your body. It's ultimately better at reducing the cortisol. And another reminder, not every workout needs to be this 110% all or nothing situation. Sometimes my exercise for the day could be a really great walk. And in fact, I'm taking more and more of my client calls via phone so that I can get a walk in once a day, because it makes me feel so much better when I can. So that's a change I've made. Now, another knock the wind straight out of you challenge that I had to experience is with my business. And in my business, I had an amazing client that was a very big contract for me. And I worked so closely with these guys in person, remotely, and with almost no notice, I lost about half of my business. This contract was about half of my annual revenue, and I had sunk so much into it. And due to some of the financial issues that company was having, the board instructed the leadership to pause all contractors immediately. And that was me. And there were some signs like in a few weeks leading up to it, but honestly, there was no information that would tell me that was going to happen to me. And I was actually on the ski slopes in Colorado, And when I got the call and I finished the run and told my kids to, well, enjoy this ski trip because we might not be having one for a while. I'm laughing now because I have worked really hard to make that different, to make my current state different. But it taught me such an important lesson. I allowed myself to get over leveraged, and I knew that there was risk, but I did not prepare for it. And I was able to work to overcome it. And so there's some huge lessons here, right? I now have changed the way that I contract, and I will not let a single contract take over that much of my business. And I will constantly keep meeting with new clients or new prospects to ensure that I don't get in that situation again. And thank goodness I had been doing some of that along the way because I was able to start rebuilding quite quickly. And it really made me think about how I spend my time in my business to make sure that I am only doing things that light me up and bring me joy and that ultimately serve my clients the strongest, and not doing the other work. So that way I could change the way my contracts look to bring in, to create a more diversified portfolio, so to speak. So what does that all mean? It means I woke up and said, I'm going to figure this out. And every day I had to keep making that commitment to myself until I did. And I would say about at the 6-month mark after that had happened in the springtime was when I could really exhale and feel like I had accomplished that. And so for those of you in it, keep going. It has been remarkable to really find my true grit and resilience there. And now I know I can do anything. And it's changed the way that I really approach things in my business and when I am meeting with prospects. Oh, so some of the lessons that I'm carrying forward from this, that when less than favorable things happen, when you get the wind knocked out of you, when your worst nightmare becomes reality, sometimes it feels like, why is this happening to me? But I'm always reminded that the true question is, why is this happening for me? This happened for me because I needed to change the way my business was operating. This happened for me because I needed to remind myself how powerful I am and that I don't need any one client. I love my clients, but the second the work isn't serving either of us, we should certainly reassess or part ways. And I like the freedom to be able to make those decisions. And my clients need to be free to make those decisions as well. I learned that letting myself get super stressed has a real negative long-term effect on my body. And I'm sorry, but most of these things we stress about we're not going to remember in 5 years, but your body will remember in 5 years. If you want to read up on more about that, there's a really great book called The Body Keeps the Score. I can't recommend it enough. And this health setback that I told you about earlier really reinforced that for me, that I need to make sure I'm literally taking a chill pill and not letting my body experience that much of the stress. So keeping myself more balanced, finding those times to rest, making those changes in the way I look at my fitness. What do I hope to achieve in the year ahead? I mean, these milestones really help you look at like what you want to create. I am such a huge believer in manifesting. The ability to manifest these last few years has really reminded me to tap into source. Seriously. I mean, I'm very much more like a spiritual person than religious, but whatever serves you, whatever you think of as higher power source energy, like when you are tapped in, you are unstoppable. And so I want to find more of that. I want to access more of that, but I know that I am my best self when I have things ahead in my year that bring me so much joy. So I'm doing this in 2 ways. Some easy things that I'm not waiting to do the things I say I want to do anymore. I wanted to do a girls trip with my little girls. And so I'm taking them to Hawaii. My husband can't go. He has something else he's doing. And I was like, you know what? I'm not waiting. We're going. And I'm so excited for that. It's a special place for me, and it'll be a special time for all of us. And what else I'm dreaming up for my business? I absolutely love spending time with my clients doing the work that I know I'm made to do. And also, there's only 24 hours in a day. For me to be able to do more of this, I need to look at what can I create outside of me showing up on a phone call to do that. So this year, we will be launching licensing opportunities, products, and ways that I can show up and support you, your team, your company without having to be there on the phone. And you know what? I guess I would say like more and more successful people that I'm working with, they don't want to be on the phone all day long either. So I'm looking for these resources and tools that they can deploy in their organizations to get the same results. So more on that coming. So stay tuned on this podcast, stay tuned in my newsletter. And lastly, I just want to thank you. Thank you for showing up for yourself, for your company, for your family, and for bettering yourself by listening to this podcast and committing to taking the action that you do. Thank you for being part of my life and letting me share this very story with you. So here's to another year of courage, connection, and wholehearted living. With love from me to you. See you soon.
Thanks for joining us this week on Eye Openers. Make sure to visit BrittanyDrose.com/podcast for this week's show notes. And if you found value in today's episode, I would so appreciate you giving us a rating on Apple Podcasts or share it with a friend. Also, don't forget to subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, or wherever you get your podcasts. This all helps to support the show.